Merry time of day. You're gonna leave us soon, aren't you? We talk a fair bit about the benefits of mending on this channel. But if you are new to the wonderful world of creative fabric repairs, how exactly do we go about pairing a specific mending style with whatever it is we are trying to mend? And how much effort is a reasonable amount of effort relative to an item's perceived worth, nostalgia, sustainability, or long-lasting potential? Because I want everyone to feel empowered to at least give mending a go, so we can all stand up against what seems to be an increasing push towards a single-use textile market, a sentence I never thought I would ever utter, let alone genuinely worrying about. Of course, what I am presenting here is only my own thought process and how I reason around mending when, what, where. Other methods or preferences or workflows are just as valid, and I would love to hear how you or those around you think around mending when, what, where, and how in the comments below. And the first handful of things that go through my head when thinking about if or how to mend something is what kind of material is it? Is it synthetic or natural, wool or plant fibers, maybe silk? Is it rigid wovens or stretchy knits or something else entirely, like a specialized fabric? Do we have similar weight and fiber content materials already in the house, or are we able to source something similar enough second hand? I generally find it works better if we are at least able to match some of the material contents with the patching material or yarn we are using for the mend. Maybe you mend a wool knit with wool thread, but you don't have the exact same color. Or perhaps you patch a black woven top with some black knit scraps that were the most similar weight fabric that you had, but weren't quite the same type of fabric. It really doesn't have to be perfect. It is usually next to impossible to match a fabric exactly, unless we still have scraps from the making of said garment or are able to harvest an inch or two from inside the hem or another less visible part of the garment. Oh, my little gargoyle. But even if we are only able to match one or two of the material features when we are mending, it will still help our piece to look a little more cohesive. Especially, it should be something that launders the same way as the fabric you are mending, because, once we've mended it, they are stuck together, so you need to be able to throw them on the same wash cycle in the washing machine. The woven versus knit fabric, on the other hand, which is really a measure of rigid fabric versus stretchy fabric rather than knit versus woven, is particularly important to pay attention to if the area to be mended has any structural or fit considerations that need to be preserved. Does it need to maintain stretch for you to get the garment on after? Will it need to stretch as you wear it and use the item throughout your day? Or does a thick, stiff woven provide structural support that most knit fabrics are not able to provide? Look for scraps or second-hand clothing to sacrifice to the mending gods accordingly. The other set of considerations that can make a big difference in how you spend your time is to assess whether it is worth spending a long time making it look neat or whether a faster, more obvious mend would be sufficient. To help me decide this, I look at whether this is wear damage or a random accident, and whether it can be a visible mend or Would I be more likely to actually choose to wear it if I spend more time making it look neat and less visible? By wear damage, I am referring to whether or not my garment will continue to wear out as I continue to use it in the exact same spot where I am mending or like very close by. Examples of this are the soles of socks and the inner thighs of trousers. These areas just keep getting worn out and keep needing mending. So generally, I want to spend as short a time mending these kinds of things as possible. They are typically not as visible to others, and I am expecting that I will need to keep repairing the same area repeatedly as my mend wears out. So while pretty flowers and neat stitchers do look pretty, I generally don't make that sort of effort here. A random accident, on the other hand, are rifts and tears typically caused by a single moment of inattention or just plain bad luck. Or also in this household, cat claws being a little bit too playful. The big difference being that I don't expect more or similar damage in exactly the same spot. Examples of this could be a skirt getting stuck on or snagging on something and tearing a rift, or finding a moth has eaten a hole in your precious hand knit. I am much more likely to take more time to mend a random accident, especially if they are in highly visible areas of my clothing, because I don't expect to have to keep mending it. So I allow myself extra time to make it a little whimsical or subtle. Combine this with whether we can do or prefer a visible mend over a less visible one, or if the garment or occasion calls for a more labor-intensive and subtle repair. The last, but certainly not least when it comes to mending considerations, are personal preferences. There are people like me who enjoy wearing clothes with whimsical flowers or leaves dotted all over it to cover up the holes it has accumulated over the years. And there are others who maybe don't enjoy that or have a job where that is unsuitable. I am lucky enough that I can tolerate the different feeling under my feet after having mended a pair of wool socks, but there are others who would find such a thing a sensory nightmare and may either have to replace their socks more often or do more elaborate mends or reknits to accommodate that. Neither are wrong, and sometimes we have to test whether we prefer one option or the other. Trying to mend even a single item in your wardrobe will help when ultra-fast fashion companies seem to be pushing us more and more towards single-use clothing. Which again, that sentence, that whole concept is just wild. And just like we have different visual and sensory needs and preferences, we also have different mending preferences. Some may reach for their patches faster than they reach for yarn, some may prefer Swiss darning over felting, and vice versa. So what does this look like in practice? First off, we have a pair of store-bought thin cotton socks. A lot of the time, I don't really find these worth the effort of mending more than once or twice, as they start disintegrating in other areas if I try to keep them alive for too long. When we do want to darn them though, I consider socks to be high wear, low visibility garments, so speed over aesthetics for sure. Luckily, black is an easy color to match, so it is not an issue to find some black cotton or linen thread to get started on this. Luckily for us, this hole is of such a size that we will preserve the rest of the stretch in the sock. Even if we have a completely rigid seam, just stitch the sides of this hole together. It's not the neatest, but it is very fast. So just kind of stitching them together or darning them if you want to do that, but just in and around the problem area. They live to walk another day. home knit wool socks, on the other hand, I tend to just keep on keeping on mending them, because you can just add in like even felting, but just insert long strands of wool and just keep them going forever without them falling apart for the rest of the thing. Sometimes this even gives me a good place to use up what was left over of the yarn I used to knit a certain pair of socks if I wanted it to be a less visible and color-matched mend. Hooray for using up those yarn scraps. Next, we have another black garment. Are we sensing a theme here? A loosely woven linen chemise from the very early dawn of this channel. I hope you will learn from my mistakes though. Loosely woven fabrics, as I've learned, may feel lovely and cool against your skin in summer, but they will snag on anything and tear out threads and have to be mended a lot, even if you try to be cautious when you are wearing it and trying to be conscientious and not get near sharp things. I don't know, I just keep damaging this one, and it's really frustrating. Here you see it. Well, there are two areas actually that I need to work on, that you can just see the damage there against my palm. How many places we need to substitute thread. Again, most blacks are pretty easy to color match, so I look for some black cotton or linen thread that is roughly similar weight as what the cloth is made up from already. We are trying for a less visible mend here near the elbow by trying to follow the original but broken weave structure to strengthen and reinforce the area. Although, if this keeps tearing every time I wear it, it will probably be destined to be repurposed for other things sooner rather than later. It's only on this sleeve though, I'm not really sure how I am careless with my left sleeve but cautious with my right. For something a little different, we have one of the severely yellowed and ragged, and frankly I shouldn't even be showing you this online, but one of the knit cotton tank tops I typically wear as my innermost layer, and they get sent through a wringer because I wash these most frequently and on high temperatures. Like, look at this, you could have a picnic through here, not a problem. The other side is better, but it's not by much. I show this on the internet so you don't have to feel like it is unnormal. I don't know. Maybe some of you will probably feel like this is taking things one mend too far. But here we go. These I almost never wear on their own, so they will not be seen by others. That already makes my pragmatic self sort this into the speed over looks category. I have this single white knit sock complete with more big holes near the heel that will do nicely as a patching sacrifice. Both are cotton, both are knit. We are even lucky enough that they are both roughly the same color, especially when you are just seeing this maybe as a white layer under a blouse or something. I cut out and attach a little patch wherever I need it and call it a day. Both have been washed multiple times, so apart from the thread I am using, neither should shrink relative to others in the washing machine. And next up we have, and I'm still somewhat flabbergasted by this, but we have a sports bra and the washing bag it was contained within, when apparently I must have placed it in a precarious position when I washed it, because when it came out of the washing machine, you'd have thought someone had pushed it up against a sanding belt, because the area under one of the cups has just been completely munched. I have never had this happen before or since, but you best believe I will be even more careful about where I place my wash bags after this. Look, it tore right through the washing bag as well, though this is an easier fix. But I mean, look at all the... This must be a fairly advanced bra, I think, because there are so many layers of foam and underwire and a fairly... It's a stretch, but it's fairly rigid, at least here under the cup. It doesn't need the same stretch as the band around the back does, so we don't have to think too much about stretch here. But yeah, look, it's just, I'm still impressed. by the severity of this burn. Yeah. Very impressive. Going through our little list of considerations, I note that this is so absolutely synthetic and a stretch fabric. But as stretch fabric goes, it is very much on the rigid side. There is even some sort of what appears to be foam next to the plastic underwire, perhaps to keep the underwire from digging in when you are using the sports bra, wearing it. The specific location doesn't need a lot of stretch though, and I don't really have much in terms of synthetic scraps, so even though this is also an underlayer and won't be seen, I am going for a black cotton sateen because the color matching will make it look nicer, even though this is going to be a ragged repair, and I have quite a few pieces of scrap cotton sateen in my scrap box, so that works out nicely. Before patching anything though, I am going through to close the tear and tacking down the damage as much as I can to keep it in place and prevent further damage down the road. This mend also reminds me of another factor that influences whether something makes the mending pile or gets downgraded to patches, and that is perceived value. This can be anything from a nostalgic item you inherited and can't replace, to an expensive item you need for your job, or any other reason why an item is difficult or expensive to replace, including sustainability and consumer concerns. In this case, I am opting to at least try to mend this because sports bras in general, but bustier models especially, are really expensive. So if I can, I want to at least give this one a chance at a second life because I don't want to replace her. It is not as if I am expecting it to have another freak sanding accident with the washing machine. Fingers crossed. Last but certainly not least, I thought we would return to the adorable B-mend of last year. This was for a wool cardigan that had a few tiny holes dotted throughout, possibly storage damage, could also be a hungry moth, who knows. It was not wear damage though, of that much I was certain. And since this is an outer and highly visible layer, and I don't have any yarn that matches this color exactly, it was time to break out the fun kind of mending. With black, yellow, and white wool yarn, I absolutely covered this cardigan in small and stinking adorable little bee friends. The chunky thread made this a much faster mend than I had even dared to hope, since you don't need many stitches to form each bee. This is still one of my favorite mends to date. I have also heard from community members who do similar things, either to cover up a stain on a favorite garment or to repair something without necessarily having it look like it has been repaired. Even when you have to hide the evidence in plain sight like this, after all, how would anyone be able to tell that this cardigan came without bees to begin with unless they knew already? I would have taken this for an intentional design from the get-go. No questions. And that's it for this time. Are there any other mends or scenarios that you would like to see addressed? Do you have a particularly satisfying mend you would like to share? Please do let us know in the comments. I admit that I am most familiar with natural fibers and visible mends, so I did turn to the community for suggestions before tackling the very synthetic sports bra, and I love that we are able to ask for community help and resources like that. Link in the description if you want to check that out. This video was, as all my other videos are as well, was brought to you by viewers like you. So thank you to our lovely patrons and people paying what they can for patterns on the website. You truly make what we do possible. You may have noticed by now that I haven't really taken on any sponsors for the channel yet, and it's not because I couldn't use the finances to pay rent and stuff, but I had really rather hoped we could avoid doing that, ideally, with perhaps the very rare exception of products and businesses that I really do believe in. But for the most part, it would just feel really weird and counterintuitive, not to mention disingenuous, to be talking about anti-consumerism on the one side and then flipping it around and trying to sell you a weird new water bottle you don't need another one of on the other. It would feel really weird to me as the creator, and I imagine it would feel really weird and jarring to you as the viewer as well. I don't know, we are trying to make do without it. Plus, while I would love to take company money over individual people's hard-earned cash, I don't know, it would feel really like I would be feeling the strings attached for sure. Just like when we read science articles in journals and you see that, that little declaration of not independence, but the little declaration of competing interests at the very bottom of the paper, and the authors do state that they have received funding from the industry to focus on this specific question or this particular angle. I don't know about you, but I was certainly very much instructed that you want to make sure that you check the methods and the results and everything more stringently than you would even normal articles, and you should read those carefully as well, because there is a lot of stuff we need to be paying attention to. But yeah, I have had multiple occasions where I've sent articles to friends with more expertise that has industry actors because I'm having some questions about it, and they're like, yeah, they chose the wrong method to look at the thing that they wanted to look at, so they would be getting good results because their method was not the optimal one for this application. And that's something you can't really pick up unless you know a lot about how these methods work and are designed to work on different things. But anyway, that's all for now. I hope you're having a decent day. Snugglebug out. Bye. You done? Hi. Would you like support? Thank you for watching this video. Thank you to the Void for showing some patience in the sling, even though I am both talking on her nap and moving about like some very impolite resting furniture. Very rude, I know, darling.